It started with the smell of engine oil and burnt coffee. The shop was loud that morning, wrenches clanging, a country song playing from someone's cracked phone speaker. I was tired but proud. 3 months into my first steady job at a mechanic garage, and for once in my life I was standing on my own 2 feet. No begging, no family handouts, no guilt trips. Just honest work. When I got my paycheck that Friday, I remember holding the envelope like it was gold. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I wiped the grease off my hands, shoved it in my pocket, and thought about how I'd finally fix the old heater in my apartment before winter hit. Then my phone rang. Dad. I hesitated because calls from him were never just checking in. I answered anyway. Finally, he said, voice thick with irritation. You're done playing with toys? Good. Come home. I've got real work for you. Dad, I already told you. I'm working full-time now. He laughed, that mocking kind of laugh that always made my stomach twist. You call that work? Changing oil and wiping hoods for tips? You sound like a clown, Evan. You'll come work for me. The family store needs help. He always called it the family store, but it was really his empire, built on yelling, guilt, and free labor from everyone unlucky enough to share his blood. My older brother, Travis, used to run deliveries for him, but when he got into trouble, Dad replaced him with whoever he could control next. I'm not quitting, Dad, I said quietly. You think you're too good for us now? It's not that. I like what I do. He went silent for a second. Then, in that low, dangerous tone, he said, Family comes before pride, boy. You better remember that. That night, I came home to find him waiting on the porch of my small rental unit. His truck headlights cut across my yard like search beams. He stepped out, holding his old wooden stick, the same one he used to discipline us as kids. What are you doing here? I asked. Saving you from embarrassment, he said, marching up the steps. You think you can defy me? You think I raised you to scrape floors for strangers? Dad, stop! But before I could finish, he swung. The stick cracked against my shoulder. The sound was sharper than the pain. Loud, humiliating, final. Quit that filthy job or I'll beat the stupidity out of you, he shouted. I stumbled backward, my arm throbbing. I'm not quitting, he hit me again. Say it again, boy. Who feeds you? Who made you? Nobody feeds me now, I gasped. I feed myself. That was the last straw. His eyes flared, not with anger, but with something worse, disappointment. Then you're no son of mine, he said, his voice cracking just slightly before he turned and walked away. He left me standing there, bruised, shaking, my pride bleeding into the cold night air. So, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I went to work like nothing happened. My boss, a quiet guy named Ray, noticed the marks on my arm but didn't say a word. Instead, he handed me a wrench and said, You don't quit. Not today. That sentence stuck with me. It was the first time a man had told me to stay strong instead of obey. Days passed and Dad didn't call. Mom texted once. He's just angry. You know how he is? Yeah. I knew. He was always angry when he couldn't control someone, but something changed inside me after that night. Every time I tightened a bolt, every time I wiped the sweat off my forehead, I thought about all those years he made me feel small, about how he called me useless, lazy, spineless, and how every insult had built this quiet fire in my chest. I started saving, every cent, every overtime bonus. I skipped nights out, ate instant noodles, slept on an old couch I found outside a thrift store. But I had a plan. A slow, deliberate, unstoppable plan. 1 month later, the shop got an offer from a local delivery company. They wanted reliable mechanics to maintain their trucks. Ray looked at me and said, You ready to lead? Lead. Me. I nodded. That night, I didn't just fix engines. I rewrote my life. The first person I called wasn't my mom. It wasn't even my brother. It was my landlord, to tell him I'd be buying this place soon. My first home. But I wasn't done. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the scared kid holding back tears in front of a man with a stick. I was about to show him that pride wasn't the enemy. It was the only thing keeping me alive. I didn't plan revenge the way people imagine it. No schemes, no long speeches. It started quietly, with silence. I stopped visiting, stopped answering calls, stopped explaining myself. My life moved forward while theirs stayed stuck in the same cycle of shouting and blame. 3 weeks after Dad's beating, I was promoted to lead mechanic. Ray handed me the shop keys and said, "You earned this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't. I worked 12-hour days, building something of my own, piece by piece. Then one morning I got a call from my brother Travis. His voice was shaky. "Evan, Dad's business. He's in trouble. The trucks aren't running. Customers are leaving. He's saying you owe him loyalty." I could almost hear the desperation behind his words. That word, loyalty, was Dad's weapon of choice. "He never asked for loyalty," I said. "He demanded obedience." 2 days later, Dad showed up at my shop. The same man who beat me for choosing independence now stood at my garage door, clutching a hat like a beggar. His eyes darted between the trucks lined up for service, the workers greeting me with respect, and the steady stream of customers shaking my hand. "You've done well," he muttered, voice tight. "But your old man needs a hand. One of our contracts fell through. Couple of drivers quit. Thought maybe you'd step in." I stared at him, silent. His face looked smaller, worn down. The stick was gone, replaced with shame. "I have my own work, Dad," I said. He frowned. "Your own work? Everything you know I taught you." I nodded. "You taught me how to survive pain. The rest I learned by refusing to be like you." His jaw tightened. "You think you're better than family?" I took a deep breath. "I think I'm free from it." He glared for a long moment, then spat on the floor and stormed out. But I saw something in his walk. Not anger, but panic. The kind of panic that comes when a man realizes the control he built his whole life on is slipping. Over the next month, his world started unraveling. Word spread that his family business was struggling. His best client pulled out after a delivery truck caught fire, one of the trucks he'd refused to maintain because he didn't need outside help. He started sending Mom to talk to me. She'd come to the shop pretending to drop off coffee or food, her eyes darting nervously. He's not doing well, Evan. He barely sleeps." I looked at her hands, the same hands that once held me still when he beat me. "You could have stopped him," I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes, but she said nothing. Silence, always silence. And then, one evening, I drove past their house. The once busy driveway was empty. The porch light flickered. Through the window, I saw Dad sitting in the dark, shoulders hunched, the stick leaning against the wall beside him, like a relic of a war he lost. I should have felt sorry for him. I didn't. The next morning, his foreman showed up at my shop. "Evan, your old man's trucks are falling apart. The engines are done. He's losing clients left and right. He's desperate. Says you're the only one who can fix it." I looked him straight in the eye. "Tell him I'm booked for the month." "But he says it's family." "Tell him pride comes before begging." That night, I got a voicemail. Dad's voice, trembling for the first time in my life. "You think this is funny, watching me fall apart? I built everything for this family. You were supposed to carry it on." I didn't delete it. I saved it, not as revenge, but as proof. Proof that he finally knew what it felt like to lose control. A week later, my brother came again. "He's sick, Evan. Stress, maybe. He keeps saying you'll come around, please." I stared at him for a long moment. "You know what he used to say when I asked for mercy?" Travis nodded, eyes down. "Family comes before pride." I smiled bitterly. He finally learned what pride costs. And that's when I knew I wasn't done yet. Because revenge isn't always fire or fists. Sometimes it's making someone live in the silence they once forced on you. The next time I saw my father, it wasn't planned. It was raining. One of those long, gray afternoons when the sky looks like it's about to cave in. I was closing the garage early when a familiar sound echoed in the distance. A sputtering engine, coughing like it was gasping for air. A beat-up delivery truck rolled into view, barely making it up the hill. When it stopped in front of the shop, I froze. Dad stepped out, soaked, thinner than I'd ever seen him. His once proud face looked tired, defeated. The stick wasn't in his hand anymore. He was holding a wrench. He didn't speak for a while, just stood there, drenched, staring at the sign above my shop door. Evans Auto Service. My name, not his, not Family and Sons, just mine. Finally, he said, "Truck broke down. No one else would help." His voice cracked at the end of the sentence, and it didn't sound like pride anymore. It sounded like surrender. I walked over slowly, wiping my hands on a rag. "Guess pride doesn't fix engines," I said. He glanced at me, eyes flashing with that old fire, then dimming just as fast. "You win," he muttered. "This was never about winning," I replied. "It was about surviving." He flinched, like the words hit harder than the rain. I opened the hood and stared at the mess. Worn belts, broken plugs, rust everywhere. "This thing's dead," I said quietly. "Just like your business." He looked down, jaw tight. "I made mistakes." "You didn't make mistakes," I corrected. "You made choices. You chose control over love, power over respect. You beat obedience into everyone who couldn't fight back, until there was no one left standing beside you." For a long moment, all I heard was the rain on metal. Finally, he said, "You sound just like your mother." I smiled coldly. She was silent for too long. I'm not. I closed the hood, tossed the rag aside, and turned toward the office. "There's a new towing company 2 blocks down. They'll scrap it for you. I'm not fixing your past." He didn't move, just stared at me with hollow eyes. "You'd let your father walk away in the rain?" I looked back. "You left me bleeding in it." That night, as I locked up, I watched him struggle to start the truck. The rain kept falling, soaking everything, and for the first time, he didn't look like a man in control. He looked like a man finally facing himself. When the engine refused to start, he sat still, gripping the wheel. I almost went back inside. Almost, but something stopped me. I walked up to the window, tapped once, and dropped a card into his lap. It wasn't a repair invoice. It was an address. The shelter he once mocked me for volunteering at when I was younger. "They help? People rebuild," I said quietly, "if you can admit you need it." He didn't answer, just stared at the card like it burned. I walked away. I didn't need to look back to know he was crying, not the angry, frustrated kind, but the kind that only comes when a man's pride finally breaks. Months passed. I never saw him again, but one day I drove past the old family store, boarded up, the windows covered in dust. A "for sale" sign tilted in the dirt. The business that once ruled our family was gone. My shop, though, it was full. My crew laughed over loud music, customers brought donuts, and every now and then, a new kid came in asking for work. I hired them all. I made sure none of them ever feared the man who signed their paycheck, because that's the difference between building something with pride and building it with pain. I didn't destroy my father. I replaced him. And somewhere out there he knew it, and that was enough.